welcome to beginner's tutorial Godot series. So basically, this is orientated for more of beginners, but others can still use this tutorial. The assets I have provided in the description will be a space side-scroller, and you're going to be shooting other ships. So we'll show you that in a minute. So first thing you want us to do is, let me on full screen, go.engine.org. And first thing you want to do, you can scroll through here. It's just information about the software. Just go up to download up here and click that and do the standard 64-bit version. Want the mono version because we're not going to be using C# in this tutorial series. We want to use the standard version. So we're going to actually be using a programming language called GD script for this. So basically once you have it installed, you should have a tab open like this. You might also have a little command prompt in the background. Just ignore that. If you exit out of that, it'll exit out of the program. So just ignore that. I'll just full screen that. I'm going to show you guys the project that we will be making. Well, the project that I have so far. I don't have the entire tutorial built yet. I just have some of the tutorial built. I'm just going to play through this. Oh, let me full screen that. So essentially you have a ship that moves towards the mouse and it shoots. So this is this isn't really even close to finished yet. It's not polished or anything, but that's what we're going to be making. We're going to be adding lots of more features to it and like more polish to make it more fun, but this is essentially what we're going to be building. Open Godot, we're going to make a new project right here under scan. Like that, we're going to call this, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it space side scroller tutorial. And we want to set our project path, and so we're going to hit browse. We're going to go up here and change, if you want it saved in a different drive, like if you want to have a flash drive, you want to change this to your drive location, which mine is F. And I would just select the folder that I want. So I select the projects folder. Okay. The only issue with this though, from right here, is it's going to put all of our project contents in our projects folder. We want a separate folder for all of our assets in our game. We don't want it all just poured into the projects folder. So there's a neat little create folder button right here. You just want to click that and it's going to create a separate folder for your project. And now for renderer, we're going to use OpenGL ES 2.0 because, well, you can read the descriptions. This basically OpenGL ES 2.0 is it's basically just gonna make it so it's like more optimized for lower end devices. And we're gonna plan on releasing this game in HTML5. You can go for OpenGL ES 3.0. It's gonna essentially be the exact same thing. I'm just gonna start making it in GL ES 2.0. because we're going to be exporting to HTML5. So do create and edit. So now it should boot up our project. Okay. So now you see that we're in a 3D scene, but we're going to be making a 2D game. So you want to go up here towards the top. Right next to 3D, there's a 2D button. Click that. And we're going to kind of get used to the controls real quick. So middle mouse button, you can scroll in and out. So if you scroll, you zoom in and out. Middle mouse button moves around. So you can move around like this. And basically everything in this square right here is going to be in our game. Nothing outside of here is not going to be our game. This is not here. You want everything, all your assets to be inside unless you don't want it to be in the screen. So we're going to start out by making a root node, and we're going to do custom node right here, and we're going to do kinematic body 2D. So essentially what this is, it's a physics body that will react and move and collide with other physics objects. So this is going to be our player. So what you can do is right click it, rename it, call it player. Okay, so now we have our node. Basically everything works in nodes, and you have these node trees. And so here I'm just going to go on to the next step so I can kind of explain it, to you guys how this works. So add in our child node, you can press this plus button, or you can right click and press add child node. When you're using this button, make sure whatever node you want to make a child node is selected, and it'll make a child of that. So now we're going to make a child, and we want a sprite. Now essentially what Sprite is, it's an image in the game. So now we have our image and it's linked under our player. and this makes a scene. So each scene has one parent node, and then nodes, well, one root node, that's what they call them, and then nodes under that node that could be stacked under each other. So essentially, this is like a parenting system. So this is the parent, this is the child of that parent, and this child node is going to inherit things like the transport position of this node. So if I change this and move it, let's say across the screen or something, the sprite is going to move with it because it's the child of it. So now we're going to need to import, because we don't have an image to set as a sprite. We can set as the icon, but we need an image. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go in my file manager, and I have a little folder, as I said from the start of the video, in the description. It's called Godot tutorial assets. So all we need is our player, so you can drag and drop our player into it. So sometimes this method doesn't work and you don't see it. If you don't see it, you might need to restart Godot, or you can try an alternative method of opening another file manager and split screening them. Yeah, split screen them like this. And then on this one, you want to go to your Godot folder. So I'm going to go here all the way to my Godot project folder. You want to go to that folder of your game, and you can drag it in to there. And that should work. If it still doesn't show up, I would recommend restarting Godot. So I'm going to drag our player, click and hold it, drag it all the way over into our texture. Now we have it, but it's super small. We can't see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in quite a bit. Just keep zooming, and you can see that our pixel art isn't really pixel art, it's just blurry. It's just like these mix of blurred colors. So to fix that, you need to go right next to the scene tab. There's an import tab. Click on that. Now you want to set the preset right next to import as texture. Hit 2D pixel. Now you can re-import, and now you see that it's a pixel image. Once we do this, this image will be pixel, but let's say we import another image. That image will not be in pixel perfect, so we'll have to do the exact same thing for each image. To make that easier, we're going to hit preset again, set default for texture. It's setting all these values that we changed with the 2D pixel preset. And we'll press re-import, and it'll make sure everything that we import from now on will be the 2D pixel preset, which saves time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set some values, because you can see our world is super big compared to our player. So we need to adjust some values to make this a little bit easier to see our player. Let's go project settings. Now you want to scroll all the way down to display. Click on window. We're going to set our width to 160. We're going to set our height to 90. We're going to set our test width to 1280. And our test height to 720. So essentially, we are making a widescreen game with a 16:9 aspect ratio. So it'll fit on most devices' screens as long as it's a 16:9 ratio screen. So 160/90 goes into 1280/720, so that's why those values work. Yeah, so those are good values to use to fit most people's monitors. Now stretch. The problem is right now we have stretch to disabled. So when we stretch out the window, it just stretches the view. It doesn't like stretch out the game. It just stretches the view. So we don't want our view to be bigger on bigger displays. We want it to be the same. So we're going to set this to 2D. Now for aspects, right now it has ignore, which means that we can stretch it at any time we want, and it'll distort those pixels and stretch them out. And so you want to do keep, which makes sure that we stretch to the exact same aspect ratio and we don't screw things up. So that works for now. I think that's all we need for now. So press keep, close, not keep. And now you're going to want to zoom in. And now you can see our world is more, it fits more to our player size. You can see that there's a warning center here. It says this node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. So we need to add a collision shape for this to happen. So enable to do that, you want to right click on that, add child node, add a search for collision. Now you should add a collision shape 2D. Okay, we have another warning sign right next to it, and it is saying a shape must be provided. So right now we don't have a shape, it's empty. So click this little arrow and scroll all the way down to new rectangle shape 2D. So now we have a rectangle that will go around our player. So we're going to have to resize this to the size of the player, but you see it resizes smoothly. It moves in between pixels. So how do we fix this? We can just, if you guys are resizing it, just hit Control Z so it's the original size. So what you can do is hit these 3 dots up here, use pixel snap. What this is going to allow us to do is going to snap to each pixel. But it's kind of off. Don't know why that is. So let's go in project settings, scroll back up and go to quality under rendering, and under 2D you want to press use pixel snap to on. This is under quality under rendering. Okay, so maybe now this should be more. That's weird. Control C. Let's re-import our collision shape. I haven't had this issue before. They should be snapping to the pixels correctly. It looks like it's still going in between them somewhat. It's like snapping to a grid. Okay, we'll just ignore it for now. I don't know why this is happening, but if you have the same issue, just ignore it for now. Now I'm just gonna click this little eye right next to the collision shape to make it invisible so I don't have to see it. Okay, so now we have our player in here, but we need to save the scene. So press Control S, or you can hit Scene, Save Scene. So I'm going to do Control S, player.tscn. That's the file system for, that's the file extension for the scene. We're going to press Save, and now we have our player scene in here. Okay, so now we want to get our player to move to the mouse. So this is going to require a script. So let's select our player node, hit the script button. Now it says attach node script. Press create. Okay, so now it says extends kinematic body. So we have all of this, like, we have all this code. Right now, I'm just going to remove all of it except for extends kinematic body 2D. So we're going to explain this. So basically what extends does is it inherits code from another script or function. Another script or built-in object. That's what I should say. So kinematic body 2D is kind of it's like another object that's built into it, and so it will inherit all these physics code and all of that global position, all this other code from that, so we can use it in our script. So essentially you want to use extends to inherit code from another script. And you could also extend code from another script like this and have it connect to another script. We're not going to do that, but you can do that. If you have another script you want to inherit code from, you can do that. So I'm going to hit enter. This, if you are familiar with Python, this programming language is a lot like it. So let's get right into it. We're going to type func, which stands for function, underscore process. Make sure you type delta and then do a colon. This might be a bit too small, so I'm going to zoom in for you guys. Let's see. Let's zoom in a bit for you guys. Okay. So essentially, what this means is underscore process, it happens every single frame. So all the code that's under here, if you just press tab, it's indented. All the code that is tabbed over under this process function will all be executed every single frame. So we're not going to talk about delta right now. We could talk about that later, but it's just another variable that makes sure that an object doesn't go faster on other computers. So we'll go over that later, but we don't really need that right now. So now what we're going to type in the indented code is global underscore position dot y. So basically what this does is global position, we're getting essentially a vector variable, which is a variable with two different variables in it, an x and a y value. So, but then when we do dot y, we're specifying that we only want the y value from that. So we're getting our y value from our position, and we want to set it equal to get underscore viewport dot get mouse position. So now, but the problem is right now we're getting an error. It's saying that we are trying to set our y position to a vector 2 because get mouse position is a vector 2, which means we can't set one variable to do two different variables. So what we want to do is dot y. So now we're setting our global position dot y to our mouse position dot y. We have to get to the viewport before we can get to the mouse position. And there's other ways to get the mouse position, but this is the way I've been using. So you can test this right now if you go to this scene button, play scene, hit that, and it'll save the scene, and it should open the window. I don't know why the windows are going off the screen. And you should see that it moves towards your mouse, but it's off the screen. And we don't want that. But don't change the position of this because this is in its own scene, and you're essentially just changing the sprite when you have that selected and moving it. So what we're going to do is we're going to let's save our player again. Press the plus to add a new scene. We're going to add a 2D scene. We're going to rename this to world. And let's click on this instance of scene file as a node. And now hit open on the player. So basically what we're doing is we're importing a player into the world scene, and that player has all of these objects attached, not objects, nodes attached to them. And so we're loading a scene into another scene. But now we can move this scene, and it moves the ship. The problem is, if we would have moved this ship right here, the origin point wouldn't be at the center, and it'd move like awkwardly. You wouldn't have it so it moves straight from the center. So just move it over a little bit so you can actually see it. Don't make sure you just leave it at the top. It really doesn't matter on the Y position, but make sure on the X position it's far enough away. Now hit Control S. We're going to save this as world.scene. So now you can hit the default play button. It's going to be like, no main scene has ever been defined. Select one. Select the world. Because we don't want to boot up the player scene each time. We want to boot up the world with all of our scenes. So now, as you can see, it's moving towards our mouse. But it's moving perfectly towards it, which doesn't really look that good. So we're going to use a magical thing in programming. I'm going to full screen this. I'm going to hit this little button right here if you want to know how to full screen the script. Just hit that so you guys can see more. So basically, LERP is a magical thing in programming. It's basically eases in and out and interpolates values. And it just makes everything so much smoother. So whenever you're moving towards a certain position or something that you need to move towards it slowly, or I don't know, there's some instances that you can use it. I'll just basically show you what it does. So type in LERP, put parenthesis LERP global position dot y, comma, space, it says get viewport dot mouse position dot y, comma 0.1, and put another parenthesis at the end. Make sure you have two parentheses right here and two parentheses right here. If you're getting red on your screen, it probably means you have an error. Just you can read the error and try to figure it out. If you have the code exactly the same as I have it, you shouldn't have any errors. So, yeah. So LERP. Basically, we're setting our global position to LERP it from the original position that we want to change to the new position that we want to move to, which is the mouse, and we want to change our position, and we set the weight to 0.1. I'm actually gonna set to 0.2. It just like depends on like how like quickly it goes to that position at like a percentage. So I'm gonna unfull screen that, and now we will hit play. Let's see how this works. So much more smoother. You see that? It's just so clean. And even if you move your mouse a bit faster, it will move faster towards it. And it just feels super nice and fun to use. Okay. So now we have our ship moving, and this concludes our first tutorial. So next tutorial, we will be making it so the ship will shoot at enemies. Yeah, and have enemies spawn. So thank you for watching this tutorial. Hope you guys liked it, and hopefully you guys learned something from it, and see you in the next one.